Health Matters with Paul Rosen.
Our diets, our Western diets in America are just really, you just don't realize how poor they really are.
What would you say to others who would like to feel better?
Sometimes you need to find the instructions. That's where the testing and everything comes in, because without that knowledge, there's no way I could have got to the point where I'm at today.
Straight talk about health.
And then I start preaching and telling them what I've been doing. And this guy named Paul Rosen has changed my life.
With your host, Paul Rosen.
By the way, the information contained in this program is not approved by the FDA, nor intended to treat, diagnose, or claim to cure any medical condition or disease as defined by Western medicine. However, skilled practitioners of many disciplines have found nutrition response testing to be a highly reliable supportive technology for assessing the health and fitness of the body's functional system.
So as I've looked into today's topic, Paul Rosen, I'm very concerned about this particular food stuff. Not only is it everywhere, not only is it bad for us, but those ill effects may include the fact that it makes us less manly. Is that true?
I guess we'll have to explore that.
We'll have to find out, I guess.
Yeah, we'll have to explore that.
So this food we're concerned about, which is in foodstuffs everywhere and in our automobiles via our tires, which also is something to be concerned about. We don't want to drop the ball right away and say what it is. But
we do.
But why is it everywhere then?
Get it? Because it's so useful. It really is a useful ingredient, especially in industry.
Well, is it just food? Or I should say, is it just filler? Is it the spackle of foodstuffs?
No, I mean, and actually, it might be. If you grind it up and make a paste out of it, maybe you could use it as a spackle. But this particular foodstuff is actually extremely useful in all kinds of uses that require oil, for example, because it remains stable in a high heat environment. And so it can be used for synthetic motor oils and automotive lubricants, as well, and tires. Believe it or not, there's a whole line of tires that can contain this food because they discovered that when included in the tire, it grips better in more inclement weather.
For the sake of our economy, I'm fully in favor of the transportation and automotive industries and their continued health. For our health, though, I'm a little bit worried about this thing being everywhere in the stuff we eat. So and should I be concerned about that?
It's included in various types of rubber and in fiber. It's included in coatings and solvents. It's included in plastics and adhesives.
So how did it become ubiquitous? How did it become so ubiquitous? How did it become so much a part of everything we use, or many of the things we use every day?
Well, I think it's just over time they science discovered the usefulness of this particular food.
And is this particular food, also this particular industrial ingredient, something that's been around for a long, long time, or are all these developments fairly recent?
Well, what is a long, long time? And then I can tell you.
Well, let's say 100 years.
Probably. Yeah, probably, although more so, moving forward into the automotive age.
Okay, so big picture, this is really sort of a recent development. Is that fair to say? That we have this stuff everywhere.
Decades old.
Like I said, big picture. So we'll just say the correct answer to my question
older
is...
Older than you?
Well, being a young, vital, healthy man.
Older than me?
Well, okay, point taken.
Old.
So there's that. Should we drop the ball then and say what we're talking about?
Well, the use of soy as a food dates back...
What did you say? You said soy. The secret ingredient that is so omnipresent or ubiquitous, to use Paul's term, is soy.
So just a few myths about soy. The use of soy as a food dates back many thousands of years. First of all, soy was not used as a food until the late Chow dynasty, which was 1134 to 246 BC. only after the Chinese learned to ferment soy. So it's the Japanese natto, tempeh, and miso. These are fermented products that, generally speaking, if used as a condiment or as an added ingredient, right, and comes from an organic source, fine for most folks, fine. And the reason that they discovered that fermenting was important is because of, and I'm going to lay this out in more specific terms, but because of all of the anti-nutrient constituents in the soy product or nuts and grains and seeds in general. And we'll talk about those ingredients.
So I'm not sure I'm following. You say soy has anti-nutrient qualities?
Correct.
Okay.
So it makes it not appropriate to assume that you can have a soy-based diet, use soy as a protein supplement, use soy formula as a, in place of breastfeeding or milk.
But going back to, you said the 11th century, these Eastern cultures found that soy was good in their foods for what reason? I'm not quite sure.
They found it was good to nitrogenate the soil to help grow other crops.
Oh, I see. So it's an ingredient in making what they thought were more productive crops.
It was during famine times that they turned to soy and figured out eventually. I'm sure they didn't do it right away, right? But, squirrels are smarter than most human beings.
Well, also, if you're hungry, a steel-belted radial with soy probably doesn't look so bad either.
Squirrels are smarter than most human beings. They at least bury their like acorns, their seeds in the ground, and come back months later to consume them. Why?
Because they're storing up for when they know times will be lean.
Because they're, quote unquote, in a fermented-like state, a soaked state, which eliminates the potency of the anti-nutrients.
How about that? That is very smart. Mm-hmm. Squirrels also climb well, and some can fly, so it's a surprise, really, they haven't taken over already.
Yeah, they have.
In effect, well, that's another conversation for another time. So
yeah.
we have soy coming about.
So tempeh, natto, tamare, miso, these are fermented products, which, when used in condiment-like quantities, may not be a problem for some people.
For some people.
But it is not a food substitute. Right? The average consumption of soy foods in Japan, for example, and China is something like 2 teaspoons a day.
So is that a lot? That doesn't sound like a lot to me.
No, it's condiment size.
Okay.
It's condiment size.
So at what point did we make this transition from those small amounts of soy in a diet to what we're dealing with now, to where soy is everywhere?
When mass marketing on all levels hit its stride.
So this stuff was used so much because...
Hey, if we use it in tires, why not use it as a food?
Well, that's not a leap you make immediately. I mean, you don't say, hey, look at this rubber. This is good stuff. Let's put that in our desserts.
The notion that you can use soy as a protein substitute, for example.
A protein substitute.
Vegans or vegetarian-style diets are very shy in protein, so getting all of the essential amino acids.
Okay, so
something like soy seems to be a potential solution.
At some point, somebody convinced themselves of that, saying, okay, we like these vegan, vegetarian diets, but we are lacking protein. How can we fix that? How can we make up that deficit? And they somehow landed on soy.
Yeah, the problem is that the soy that most people are using is not a fermented soy. It's an artificially a processed product.
Which I assume is cheaper to produce.
Totally cheaper when, like it's all processed often in highly alkaline solutions to break it down. Problem is not only does that perhaps reduce the amount of anti-nutrient components, but it also destroys the protein, the acids and the protein acids in the food itself.
To be clear, then,
like lysine, for example.
Not only are many of us consuming this
amino
food,
acids is what I was looking for.
That's the term that you couldn't land on.
That I couldn't grab out of my 70-year-old brain.
But now you have, and that point has been well made. But my point is this, is that not only are many consuming this food, which is not necessarily all that great for them, they're consuming a lesser version of that food. They're taking down this stuff that's...
It's a highly processed food. And then, of course, if you're not utilizing organic, then you have all of the residues of, pesticides, herbicides, fungicides in the food themselves. So utilizing food products made from soy that have not been properly fermented poses a huge problem for infants, for example. It has the capacity to stunt growth, to stunt your immune system, and so much more.
Is soy in milk, or is there a product called soy milk?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, soy milk is on the shelf.
And
boy, you don't get around much.
Well, I that was a leading question as you wink at me. We really need to get video in here so they can see your body language.
Well, I was linking because I didn't want you to throw something at me when I said.
Well, okay. Well, no, I had no nefarious
Get your hand off of that bottle.
Motive there. No, I'm not going to shut off your mic. Although I could do that at any time if I want to take over. Okay, it's your turn to talk now, Paul.
Okay.
Yeah, I can tell you're eager.
So why are there anti-nutrients in food in the first place? Well, it turns out that plants, like soy, want to survive and thrive just like we do. And these anti-nutrients are there, for example, to protect the seed from prematurely sprouting in an environment that won't support its full growth.
So as part of their natural process of surviving in a Darwinian
as part of their immune
environment,
system,
they're producing these anti-nutrients to make themselves stronger. The plants are, is that right?
And protect themselves from the environment and animals, for that matter.
So by adding soy to the equation, we're interfering with that natural process.
Mother Nature puts anti-nutritional factors and toxins in things like grains and nuts and seeds and beans, right? For a variety of reasons. Goitrogens block the synthesis and utilization of thyroid hormones. First and foremost, why would you be eating soy? Right? The thyroid epidemic in the United States is massive.
We'll back up a moment. Goitrogens, where do we find those?
Grains and nuts and seeds and beans.
And those are they're a naturally produced anti-nutrient. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay.
It is one of the anti-nutrients.
Now, does soy contribute to that anti-nutrient factor?
No, soy is it's a bean.
Mm-hmm. Soy is a bean?
Goitrogens are contained in beans.
Hence the term soybean.
Thank you. I knew that age of yours you're just having a little bit of a moment.
No,
there.
I think you're mistaking that for me just drawing a line from A to B to C. That's what I'm doing here.
I see.
All right.
Okay. Oxalates are another anti-nutrient, and they're indigestible compounds. Again, overarching, these are found in nuts and grains and seeds and beans.
All right.
Okay? So oxalates, indigestible compounds that prevent the proper absorption of calcium. So if you eat a ton of these foods, then even if you eat the calcium, you may not absorb the calcium, right? Oxalates are soy protein. Spinach and rhubarb are where oxalates in their highest amount are found. Again, soy, protein, spinach, and rhubarb.
So those things actually, I mean, spinach and rhubarb.
So
I
if
think,
you have a thyroid condition, meaning your thyroid has been diagnosed as hyper or hypo, should you be eating soy, spinach, and rhubarb?
Probably not, because
Probably not.
They have these anti-calcium properties. Is
Exactly.
that right?
And if you look back in your family history and you have problems with thyroid, should you be eating soy, spinach, and rhubarb?
No, you should not.
No, you should not. So this whole idea that soy is across the board a protein substitute or for consumption in any other form than a properly fermented form from an organic supply of soybeans puts your health and quality of life at risk.
To summarize here then, soy has actively destructive properties which prevent certain nutrients from entering your body. Is that right?
Yeah. Saponins are another one. And saponins, you'll know that there's saponins when you prepare, when you personally prepare beans or seeds, and you see that foam that sort of forms at the top, bubbles up and forms at the top.
Okay, these are
you
saponins.
You should spoon that off.
Because
they're saponins, and they are an anti-nutrient, right? And they contribute largely to. They're quite bitter, for one thing, so you don't want to eat them. But they're associated with leaky gut syndrome.
Which doesn't sound healthy. I don't think I need to know the particulars of that.
Well, those people who know about leaky gut know what I'm talking about.
Right. It sounds very self-defining.
It's what leads to all kinds and manner of functional illness.
And again,
Leaky
soy
gut.
as an anti-nutrient can make that happen.
It's considered one of the describing how a person develops food sensitivities, for example.
Are those manufacturers, food manufacturers, who then include soy in so many products, aware of these destructive things that can happen?
Well, if I said they are, then they're criminal. But if they're not, then they're just ignorant.
Right. That you don't buy a soy product that says caution may cause leaky gut. I mean, we know what we're buying. We may not know there's soy in it, but we also may not know.
Who markets their product highlighting all of the negative aspects of it?
Well, unless they're told.
I mean, if they want a successful marketing campaign.
Well, cigarette manufacturers, they're told, in order to sell their product, you have to include these warnings about how harmful your product is. But with soy, we don't have that.
Okay, well then you better start lobbying your congressperson.
Or better,
get them
as
going.
opposed to having somebody watch out for us, shouldn't we be watching out for ourselves?
Well, you wouldn't know. I mean, without someone like me or somebody else who is interested in learning more about the things you put in your mouth. So besides the oxalates, there are phytates. These are very common. For example, they block seeds from sprouting prematurely. But they also block proper absorption of minerals like iron and zinc and calcium and other minerals, right? So they can lead to, as a result, they can lead to poor growth, anemia, immune system incompetence, meaning it's not doing its job as effectively as it should, and other health woes when you're deficient in minerals. So the key here is just because you're eating what you think might be a thoroughly nutritionally dense food doesn't necessarily mean you're actually getting the benefit of it, that is, absorbing it through your intestines into your system, if it contains a lot of anti-nutrient components.
As we eat soy products without knowing that soy's in them, can our bodies absorb that and therefore be resistant to some of these essential nutrients you've mentioned? In other words, what I'm saying is if you can remove soy from your diet, you're going to remove these anti-nutrient properties.
Oh, of course.
Is that
yeah,
right?
Of course.
Okay, that's the point I was getting to.
Okay. Yeah, sure. Yeah, of course. Of course.
And it was fully connected. There was no disconnect going on there.
Lectins are another anti-nutrient, and they help fix nitrogen. That is for the very purpose that soy was used earlier in, by humans. They fix nitrogen in the soil, but they too can cause leaky gut and adverse immune reactions and enhance blood clotting.
It does seem we are in this endless cycle as humans of creating something or using something which is beneficial, in this case for increasing crop production, which inevitably catches up to us.
And then soy has its own little... Now, I mean, some of these other anti-nutrients are in soy, but it has its own little ingredient called soyatoxin, which can cause clotting, just like lectins. In mice, large doses have proved lethal, having caused breathing difficulties, convulsions, and partial paralysis prior to... You get where I'm going? There's all kinds of reasons why one might be sure that if you're so enamored with soy that you absolutely must consume it in some form. Fermented forms are important, and absolutely do not rely on soy for your protein source.
So all you folks who might be...
Downsides are greater than any upsides.
So if you're a vegan or a vegetarian and you're trying to substitute soy for protein or get protein from soy, maybe you should stop.
Think again.
Reconsider.
Think again.
Okay, so we've established that. So what are the alternatives? What can we do if there's all this soy out there and all these products? First, I guess you've said...
What do you mean alternatives?
What other foods can you be? What other foods can you be consuming? For all of us. In other words, if we have all those products out there...
You just want to prepare the nuts, beans, seeds, and grains, properly. That's why soaking in sea salt water, for example, for nuts or even some grains, cooking in some fashion can reduce these anti-nutrients.
So
fermenting.
If I buy a bag of peanuts out of a vending machine and consume those, am I taking in an unhealthy amount of soy?
No, peanuts have nothing to do with soy.
Okay, well, there you go.
No, you're talking about the anti-nutrient factor.
Right.
There are anti-nutrients in peanuts.
You said
although
nuts.
Peanut is not a nut.
It's not.
It's a legume.
It's a legume.
Yeah.
It's been poorly branded from day one.
More like a bean than a nut.
Talk about false advertising.
But soy is not.
But who goes to a vending machine to get a legume?
Well, you obviously do.
Well, apparently, yeah. Without even knowing it. Look, they have legumes. Only $1.25.
There you go. I mean, legume, peanut. Peanut's much better.
Yeah, I guess. I've been
so
conditioned.
your peanuts, you know, if you were according to Hoyle, you'd want to soak them before you use them, right? Some people say that roasting them is good enough. Other people say that roasting them aggravates the potential for creating an allergy.
So is there a roasted peanut controversy going on here?
Absolutely, there's a roasted peanut controversy.
I believe,
personally...
What? Well, I want to believe that roasting peanuts makes them better for you because they're good. Who doesn't like roasted peanuts?
There is some controversy over whether the roasting process... Now, that could be because of using the oil to roast them as opposed to dry roasting. Hard to say at this stage. I don't think it's, there's a firm conclusion. But it's certainly better than just eating raw peanuts. It's
such a confusing age, Paul. I mean, here we are concerned about the fate of democracy and whether or not we should roast our peanuts.
Well, the true issue here boils down to individuality, because not everybody is going to experience, the results in the same way. People who can consume a lot of nuts and seeds may not experience all of these downsides, and some people will. So how do you differentiate? How would you know? That's where the muscle testing comes in. That's where nutrition response testing comes in. That's where having somebody like myself as a guide who can figure out precisely what the individual characteristics are and go from there.